ATAGI advice talks about a preference for AstraZeneca to be available for those over 60, but the advice does not preclude persons under 60 from getting the AstraZeneca vaccine.
The AstraZeneca vaccine is now available for people under 60 who choose to take it, but it's too late to arrest this current crisis.
This leaves us with no option. From 6 p.m. tonight until 6 p.m. on Friday, South East Queensland, Townsville City, Palm Island and Magnetic Island will go into lockdown.
2 new cases of community transmission, but possible spread into the state's north, has prompted a 3-day snap lockdown for most of Queensland. One of the new cases, an unvaccinated casual hospital clerical worker who today was confirmed as having the Delta variant.
Despite the health directives that she should have been vaccinated, she was not. I am absolutely furious about this.
The Premier also joining Victoria in calling for return traveller numbers to be temporarily slashed.
We need to get on top of this. I am just urging the Prime Minister, reduce the caps.
Compare a lockdown of a whole city or a whole state and the pain of that versus halving or reducing by 75% or 80% the number of people who are coming back through hotel quarantine. In my judgment, there's no comparison.
Queensland's announcement means that the Delta variant now has more than half of the country's population in lockdown or under restrictions. In New South Wales, the locally transmitted Bondi cluster has grown to 149.
To 8 p.m. last night, New South Wales recorded 19 cases of community transmission. Pleasingly, 17 of these cases have already been linked.
WA has slammed the border closed to Queensland. The NT also shut out New South Wales and WA as it reported 2 new cases.
Acting straight away, rather than waiting till the end of the day, has paid off massively for us and substantially reduced the risk of a spreader event.
As Australia faces this spiralling COVID crisis, the calls for purpose-built quarantine sites grow more urgent.
Every day we have new cases in hotel quarantine from people who have travelled from overseas.
So this is coming out of hotel quarantine. It's coming out of hotel quarantine across the country. Hotels are for tourists. They're not for the containment of a widely infectious virus.
Jane Holton was head of the Australian Health Department for more than a decade, is now on the board, or sits on the board of the Australian National COVID-19 Coordination Commission. She joins us now. Let's talk about the quarantine arrangements, Jane. I know you care a lot about this. Last week, it seemed like the federal government started to change its tune a bit on this and seems more open now to building purpose-built facilities in different cities around Australia. Realistically, how quickly could we get those up and running if we really, really tried?
Well, they're more than just open to it, Waleed. They've actually agreed to one in Victoria. The Victorian government's given a really detailed business proposal to the federal government. I'm told it's really excellent, and they've agreed on Mickleham as the place for this to be built, and now they're going to get on and do it. And I'm really hopeful that the timetable they've set themselves, that this facility, at least the first 500 beds, will be up and available basically by the end of the year. So we've got a bit of time to go before we get there, but they're on it, and I know that the big end of town, the big construction companies, etc., they're all really keen to help and make sure that this is delivered as fast as they can.
Is that as fast as they can, though? Like, if you think about some of the mining operations that can set these similar things down in a matter of weeks, I don't need to tell you what the Chinese government would probably be able to do in this sort of situation. Could we do it faster?
Well, actually, as it happens, I've talked to one large construction company in the last couple of days, and they are going to do everything they can, if they're selected, obviously, to try and bring the timetable forward. I think, to be fair, Waleed, there's a lot of work to be done on the site, then the construction of the individual units that people would be accommodated in, not to mention the central unit. I am absolutely confident that the people who are working on this will do everything they can to deliver it as fast as they can. And you know what? If they can do it before Christmas, I guarantee you they'll do that.
But Jane, the federal government only wants to think about these purpose-built centres in conjunction with hotel quarantine. It doesn't want to scrap that system altogether. Is that the right policy at the moment?
Look, I think so. I'm still really aware that there are lots of Australians offshore who actually need to come home. We haven't got them all home yet, and I do think significantly cutting down the numbers is going to make that really, really difficult. And you know what? It's worth reminding ourselves that, at least in the case of the big Sydney outbreak at the moment, that hasn't come in the context of hotel quarantine. It's come in the context of aircrew who are coming back. We can't shut our borders completely. What we do need to do, though, is make sure that every possible little tiny weeny chink that this virus can get through until we get the population more vaccinated actually shut. And that includes the really welcome decision from National Cabinet that we're going to make sure that we have as many of these frontline workers actually vaccinated. That is really good news, because that's what we need to do.
Jane, thank you so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.